Good morning, and now we are going to be talking about Joseph and his coat of many colors. I really enjoy this story, I think partly because when I was in high school, we actually did the play Coat of Many Colors. And so we're going to be talking about this. This is in the Come Follow Me. We know that God blesses people who trust Him and keep His commandments, but sometimes it doesn't seem that way. Sometimes the person who trusts God is abused and abandoned by family members. Sometimes the person who bravely refuses to violate the law of chastity gets falsely accused anyway. When things like that happens to us, we might be tempted to become angry with God. We might wonder, what's the point of trying to do the right thing if it only seems to make life harder? Joseph, the son of Jacob, could have wondered that. At times, this faithful man prospered. At other times, it seemed that the more faithful he was, the more hardship he faced. But Joseph never left the Lord, and the Lord never left Joseph. That doesn't mean the Lord prevented bad things from happening to Joseph. Though through it all, the Lord was with him. I think that's one reason why it's so easy to relate to this, is because we all face difficulties, and no one is immune from it just because they're baptized or they're part of the church or whatever. In fact, if anything, it seems like sometimes it can be harder. There's many times when someone will join the church and you will just know that they think, oh, life's going to be easy now. And they learn that just because they're doing what the Lord wants them to do doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I've learned, why is it, people say, well, why does God, if He loves us, let all this bad things happen and all this other things? It's used time and time again, usually by people who really just are trying to find an excuse. The reason why bad things happen is because it is life. And another thing is it's our experience. If it was God's experience, He might have a different thing, but He wants us to learn, and He knows the beginning from the end. And we have to go through this so that we can learn something about us, not so we can learn something, or that He can learn something about us, but that we learn something about us and about Him. And we'll find that He has greater love for us than we ever know. We never just hold the child all their life just because we're afraid that they might fall. We let them go, and they will fall. But then they learn to walk. And that's what we have here, is a story about someone, a story about Joseph, who learned where he was with the Lord, and he never leaves the Lord, and the Lord never leaves him. So in chapter 37, we're going to go right into it. Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, the land of Canaan, basically where his father wandered. These are the generations of Jacob. Now, I've said before, we kind of pay attention to when it says generations because it pulls us in. And Joseph was 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. Notice it doesn't go through the generations as we would think it would. It starts talking about Joseph. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. So he's not with all of the sons. He's with those two sons. Those, is it four? I can't remember all of them. Gad and a few others, which were born to them. I'm sorry I didn't prepare that part, but you can look back and look who was Bilhah and who was Zilpah's children. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children. That doesn't help, does it? Because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And we've got a few things here. What was the coat given to Joseph? The Hebrew word translated as coat in King James Version of the Bible can also be referred to a garment, a robe, or a tunic. Scholars have suggested that the phrase coat of many colors might describe a richly embroidered garment that reached to the palms and the feet. It is possible that Joseph received this coat to represent his role as Jacob's birthright son. Joseph's garment, along with his dreams and his father's favor, contributed to his brother's jealousy of him. And then, what does the Book of Mormon teach about Joseph's coat? The Book of Mormon, Captain Ronai provided additional information about Joseph's coat that is not recorded in the Bible. He explained that Joseph's brothers tore the coat to pieces and that one of the pieces was preserved. Joseph's father, Jacob, later prophesied that the remaining piece of Joseph's coat symbolized a remnant of Joseph's seed who would be preserved by God. The Nephites and Lamanites in the Book of Mormon were a remnant of the seed of Joseph. The Lord promised that Joseph's posterity should never perish as long as the earth should stand. I think that's amazing, and I just wanted to point out something that I think is here at the top, and I missed that one. And that is, it's right here. I'm going to just go right. I think I can click on. I just wanted to go actually to the context because it's easier to read there and it works so well. So, how was Joseph similar to Jesus Christ? And we're going to cover this in the next little while. I think it's worth going to. Many aspects of Joseph's life can remind us of Jesus Christ. The following are some examples. Passages about Joseph Smith on one side here. I'm not going to look them all up because you can do that yourself. And then passages about Jesus Christ on the other side. But right in the middle are the similarities. They were both beloved sons. They were both rejected by some of their father's children. Conspiring men united against them. They were stripped of their clothing. They were betrayed by men named Judah. Judas is the Greek form of the Hebrew name Judah. They were sold for the price of a slave in their day. Joseph for 40 pieces of silver, Christ for 30. Joseph's oldest brother looked for him in an empty pit. Christ's senior apostles looked for him in an empty tomb. They overcame temptation. They were falsely accused of wickedness. They gave God the glory for the good things they did. They were not recognized by those who should have known them. Joseph revealed himself to his brothers when they came the second time. Jesus will reveal himself to the world at his second coming. They willingly forgave those who repented. They were saviors to the people who provided them and provided them with life-saving bread. So that is a lot of similarities. And as we're reading through it, I want you to keep that in your mind. And we've already read the other ones further down. So we're going to get back in there. And when his brethren saw that his father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably about him unto him. So they were not very nice to him in the first place. That's probably why the father didn't send him out with them, which we'll get to. And it doesn't help that Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told his brethren that and they hated him yet more. I'm just going to go there, so you can go there and see what dreams there are, and what it means in the Bible. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaf. And the brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet more for the dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee in the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. So even though it sounds like he is rebuking him, but he's also taking it all in and seeing something that's happening. And of course, it almost seems like he's doing it because his brethren were there, but he definitely understood a little bit more about what Joseph was going through. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee to them. And he said, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem, and a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in a field, and the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. He thought, well, they're supposed to be here. Why are they not here? And the man said, They departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. They realized that he was alone. They realized there's no witnesses. And they realized they could get away with it. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer, or master of dreams, as that would be, cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what become of his dreams. What will become of his dreams. They're figuring that this is a way to get rid of those dreams, that he's not going to rule over them. And has that sort of thing happened before? Several times, where wicked people thought if they just get rid of the person, the prophet or something, that it won't come true. And it happens several times in the Book of Mormon. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, for he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. Sorry about the yawn. And it came to pass that Joseph was come unto his brethren, and they stripped Joseph of his coat. His coat of many colors was on him. And we've already read about the significance of that. And they took him and cast him into the pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked and beheld a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead, and their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Remember I said earlier, I think last month, that we would come up with these people in history. We've got Ishmaelites, we're going to have the Midianites. All these were talked about, and we can see how they come down through the generations. And they're not that far off from when Ishmael had lived. Only a couple of generations. So it's important that we understand that as well. These are almost cousins. For he is our brother, and our flesh, and our brethren, and his brethren. And his brethren were content, or as it says there, hearkened, rather than just being content. They listened to Judah. There passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they bought Joseph brought Joseph into Egypt, and Reuben returned unto the pit. So I'm not sure where Reuben was, but he returns there, and he must not have been there when all this happened. Behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he turned unto his brethren and said, The child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. They obviously knew, but they were worried. They made it sound like they were worried. And he knew it, and he said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him, and Joseph is without, double rent in pieces, without doubt, rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son for many days. And this just talks about this, the sackcloth and ashes. Why did Jacob rent his coat and put on sackcloth? Remember, Reuben also ripped his clothes, and the people in the Old Testament would often perform traditional acts or signs to express grief. Jacob rent his coat and put on sackcloth when he believed that Joseph had died. Sackcloth was a coarse material made of goat or camel hair that was worn during times of mourning or repentance. Wearing sackcloth was often accompanied by the tearing of one's clothes. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, For I will go down to my grave and to my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him unto Potiphar, officer of Pharaoh's captain of the guard. So it kind of, there's a few here. It means eunuch, which often designates a royal official. And also the captain of the guard is chief of butchers or the cooks, probably the chief steward. So it doesn't mean that he's just like military or something like that. It means that he's like the chief person in charge. So the story has begun, and what will happen to Joseph? And how will he cope with it? His brothers just betrayed him. We'll see you tomorrow.